Hello, and thank you for tuning in to FLAPtv. I'll be your host, Alexander Ramos Jr., filling in for a vacationing Kevin in San Diego. All right, our guest panelists are Andrew Cordio and Derek Strasdis, correct? Thank you. All right, issue 1. Fitchburg leaders are investing a lot of money in downtown Fitchburg, yet we continue to see small businesses in that area closing. Is Fitchburg on the right track to maintain and enhance a friendly climate and promote growth, or what are we doing right, and what can we do? What can we be doing better, Andrew?
Well, I would say, I think first of all, it's been nice to see the city kind of ahead of the curve a little bit with the marijuana growing facilities. You know, we got 4 or 5 of those in the city now. We've had, the warehouse space. It's cool to see that stuff getting put to use. And the development on River Street has been really good to see. It's that fine line the city has to walk to bring in new business, but you also need the clientele. You need people to spend money. You can't just open up a business. Mm-hmm. So it's walking that fine line. I think the mayor's doing a good job of, getting more people in here as well as the businesses at the same time. And it's not an easy thing to do, but he's doing better than, anyone who's been around, I think, in the last few decades doing it. So,
Michael.
I agree. There's been some positive strides, and you're seeing some things that you didn't see before. I am somewhat disappointed, though, in that you do have an administration that means well. You do have an administration that's emotionally invested in the city, so that's a good thing. But in terms of the rhetoric that I heard when Mayor Di Natale was first elected, in terms of Fitchburg being open for business and whatnot, Fitchburg is still perceived as business unfriendly. Now, whether that's fair or not. It's something that needs to be addressed, and I think sometimes they turn deaf ears to it. And I just wish that they would address that. I've heard people there are people in the Fitchburg business community I've heard from recently that were great supporters of this administration, heavily invested in downtown, really expressing pessimism for the first time. Pessimism that I hadn't heard from some of these people in like 20 years. So I am getting somewhat concerned. Positive strides, but I have some lingering concerns.
Cindy.
I agree. I think there's been a lot of positive changes in probably I've noticed last 5-6 years, maybe even longer. But it's continually kind of cleaning up the place. Some of the buildings coming down that really should have been gone a long time ago. There's been a lot of cleanup and a lot of beautification projects that do help because it makes it more attractive to come here. But I do see a lot of small businesses, especially in the food industry, coming and going rather quickly. And that concerns me too, because I don't see that in other towns. People seem to be able to manage a little bit longer. So I'm wondering if maybe while they're trying to be business friendly, are they being business friendly enough to give these people a chance to get going? Or are they maybe giving them a hard time. One of the things that I've heard from other people, not these guys, but other people in the restaurant industry, is the inspector. There's been some issues, and maybe she's a little bit, gung-ho, and maybe needs to back it off a little bit and give people a chance and give them a chance to get going and then work on it.
Derek.
Cautious optimism. I'm really happy to see Main Street invest in itself. I think that a bit of confidence in Main Street will resonate with businesses that do want to come in. I don't think that we're seeing the number of businesses drop, but we're seeing a lot of new businesses come in and establishment businesses leave. So we do see the Doughboys and the Strong Style Coffee and the Tryst and the Beamers and that crowd come in, but we also have to celebrate that Fitchburg has a lot of establishment restaurants and establishment businesses that we do want to keep. So make new friends but keep the old kind of situation. I do think the mayor is being treated a little bit unfairly in regards to the city hall, because I do think in the future we can have a situation very similar to Keene. And that would be great. That would be a huge bit of confidence in the college, which I know doesn't pay taxes in the regards that we want, but they do put grants toward projects on Main Street. So we do see that theater block being revived. That would be a great thing, not just for the students, not just for the communications department at Fitchburg State, but to bring people from other towns into the area and then say, hey, that was actually a good time, let's go back. Yeah. So a bit of confidence is a good thing. Let's see what we get out of it. It is a lot of money for a city hall, and we are gonna get a nice chamber for the counselors, but we do also need to back off and say, this is a decision that's already made. Let's see where it goes rather than complain about it. The potholes would be nice to address, but this is an infrastructure bill that we're going to see possibly good benefits from. So I'm happy about it.
Now we have City Hall, and then the good partnership with the university in Fitchburg State when we have the theater block coming in Main Street. I think that will obviously produce more growth down in Main Street. But do you think it's better if we tailor downtown Fitchburg to the college town?
Well, I mean, you can tailor it if all you want, or attempt to tailor it all you want, but this has been an attempt made for 20 years, okay? I was working in downtown Fitchburg, 18 years ago when the college acquired the old Shawmut Bank building next door, I think it's 565 Main Street. That was the original Let's Draw Students Downtown building, and they let go of that project very quickly. So it really, okay, it sounds good in theory. Reality is a different story, okay? And I just think that the right now Fitchburg needs a little bit more volume of business, and I couldn't agree more with what Cindy said in that sometimes I'm not suggesting that a health department or another safety department look the other way. I'm not suggesting that we have sweatshops. I'm not suggesting that we do things that are patently illegal. But my goodness, if you're able to sort of phase in requirements for some of our older established restaurants and food service places, do that rather than just demand full compliance at once. I've heard, and again, this is from people who are strong supporters of this administration. This isn't people who, Steve DiNatale says red, they say blue, okay? This is people who are strong supporters or past supporters of this administration saying this Board of Health Inspector is off the rails. I mean, hey, I own a law office downtown. I don't think the Board of Health Inspector can do much for me, but against me, but I'm telling it like it is, okay? People are fed up with the rigidity. We got to, at least to the extent possible, use discretion to loosen things up a little in this city.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard that from quite a few people, and I think there's an attempt to clean it up, and that's a good thing. You need to do things by the books, but I think you could do, look at Leominster per se, when they have their established restaurants and new businesses coming in. You don't see too many people leave once they're there. So there's something going on there. I do think cleaning up Main Street and bringing in some retail is going to help do that in the theater district. I think if that really gets off the ground, could be a big thing for downtown. When that old theater used to be open, I'm dating myself, but it was pretty cool. It was a cool place to go to back in the day. So,
but we're even seeing retail leave. We saw Shacks leave Main Street.
Yeah.
And that's not any issue with any regulation. That's an issue with foot traffic.
Yeah.
And we saw the local spot. That business had to be established with foot traffic. You can't get there otherwise unless you're on foot and on Main Street. And if you're not on Main Street, how can we get you there?
Yeah.
We need to get people there for these businesses on Main Street to survive. It's classic storefronts right down the whole way. We need people to be walking by and say, hey, I'm going to stop here. If we can't do that, then we can't bring anything new.
No,
Do you think it's the type of businesses that are there, or we're just not, it's not promoting the foot traffic?
I think the type of businesses that are there are reflective of the atmosphere in which they reside. I think that if we provide a more desirable atmosphere, we're going to get different types of businesses. We can't have a little craft shop or a pottery shop or anything down there, artisan soaps or olive oils, that type of thing. You only get that once you have an actual walking space for people, a destination for people to go to, a reason for people to go there.
Like a marijuana shop, but they won't allow that down
dispensary.
here.
Well,
You put a marijuana shop there, and maybe a bakery right next door.
They have one of those in Gardner.
More entertainment, we need that.
Not exactly flourishing, the one in Gardner. They're having a tough time. And if you look into that industry, they have a big problem with waste. A lot of plastics wasted, a lot of things wasted. And they're going to have more regulations. They're going to put more
And the taxes on it is, I think that's
Correct.
what's
Yeah,
hurting
and
them,
the
too.
prices are going to go up once they can't use these single-use plastic containers.
Yeah, exactly.
So that type of shop is not what I'm looking. But I'm looking for more.
I think having the new artist space down in BF Brown could really help that. I was looking at the
Yeah.
plans for that. You know, that's going to be a building full of people now.
Right, yeah, 62 apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be nice too.
You know, and
We
then-
are bringing the people in the city. Let's bring some businesses for them to shop at.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting at earlier.
Yes.
It's hard to walk that line. You know, but
Yeah.
they're doing a good job on River Street. We got the new apartments in there. You know, there's
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
River
there's-
Street's beautiful.
There's stuff happening. You
Yeah,
can see it
compared to what it
happening.
Then we have what, Yarnworks right behind there. That's a lot of new people in the area. Let's
Yeah.
give them some places to go.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they're going to go to Leominster.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing.
Issue 2. Massachusetts has become the latest state to allow people to choose X as their gender on their driver's license and state IDs. Do you support this move, and what are your thoughts on the general trend of recognizing and accepting gender identities that may not necessarily match with their biological gender? Michael.
I don't know.
I was just saying, I hope
Are
I'm
there
not-
only two genders?
Look, on the, yeah, I believe there are only two
Okay.
genders, and yeah, that's what I believe. You know, talk about both sides, or I'm on the, you know, I represent the regular left side of this panel, but yeah, I'm sorry, that's what's one so-called conservative thing I believe. With that said, yeah, I think there is an alternate argument that can be made. Our own Kevin Cormier has made the best argument in terms of not talking about transgenderism and gender issues and gender identities as to why X should be there. So why do we need gender on the driver's license at all? Okay, I mean, you know, what driver's license should just be whatever a driver's license absolutely needs, okay, to disclose your identity. But so that's the best argument I've heard of it. I can't look. I'll be the first to admit that I maybe need education on this issue, or I need to learn more about this issue. I'm not there yet, honestly, and I really do think it's a bit of a dog whistle, this whole idea, because people in the internet group, in the FLAP internet group, and all arguing, well, you know, the reason you do this is because, and they present these reasons to put the X that have nothing to do with recognizing multiple genders. They try to, and I just don't quite buy the argument. I think really it's more of a dog whistle. Like, the reason that they're doing that is to satisfy those folks who believe in gender fluidity, and I'm not there yet.
Cindy.
I agree with Michael. You're either a man or a woman, or you identify as a man or a woman. I don't have a problem with you if you identify as a man, put yourself down as a man. I really don't care. But you're either a man or a woman, or you know. So to put X, I mean, you know, somebody else could come along and say, well, X doesn't quite fit it. I want it to call Z, you know, or whatever. And I hadn't really thought about that argument about why do we even need it on there. I mean, nowadays, you really can't tell if somebody's a man or a female, so I guess it probably really doesn't matter. But I definitely, I'm not for an X. No.
Derek.
See, I'm with them on this. I think the X is unnecessary. If you're a biological female that identifies as a male, put the M, if that's what you want to do. If gender is even required on there.
Yeah.
I have no problem if I misjudge the pronoun and I'm corrected. I have no problem with addressing a person as they wish to be addressed. I have no problem with saying, what's your preferred pronoun? That being said, I think that it should not come down on me. If I'm corrected, I stand corrected, and I will say, I will address you as you wish. I don't think it necessarily needs to be on ID, and I don't think the X makes much sense to me, but that's just where I land on that one.
Andrew.
Yeah, not a fan of the X. I don't see how that. There's just, I don't see a point to it, just to go with what everybody else is saying. You know, I feel like you're either born a man or a woman. If you're transgender and you're born a woman and want to be a man, then put an M, you know. I feel like probably should have some type of gender on the ID, just because some names you can't tell if a person is, you know, a man or woman, you know, first name status. So I feel like, you know, that's kind of basic if you might be talking to a man or a woman. But yeah, I mean, the X, I feel like it's playing into, you know, if you're someone who's, I don't know what they would call gender non-binary or what, they're not a man or a woman, I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, that's
And what happens, I mean, I never really thought about it, but what happens if you break the law and the cops arrest you, and then they bring you to jail? Like, who's handling you?
Yeah, what jail are you gonna go to?
A male or a female? Are you allowed to even ask them? How do you determine that? I just think you're stepping over a line. It just, male or female.
Or at the hospital.
Hospital, yeah.
I mean, look, I don't know, things evolve. 20 years from now, somebody may play back this show and be like, boy, those guys are just totally like, behind the times. Because I don't know, 20 years ago, if we were all given a show on gay marriage, where we all be like, what are you talking about? Come on, gay marriage. And I think I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think we're kind of we're all supportive of it.
that.
I think
Okay,
you have to
and
go
so-
further than 20 years back for people to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, like
30, 40,
years,
40,
yeah.
okay? I mean, but I think there is, look, could be a point 30, 40 years from now, we play back the show and that we're all in the Stone Age. I don't know, but I haven't seen the empirical evidence yet that.
Right, from where we stand, it doesn't seem necessary.
Yeah, the hospital's a good point. We're all given a set of equipment. One
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
other.
What do you
And
do?
professionals, there's certain people because of their job, they need to know what they're going to be.
Or
dealing
even
with.
airport security, if they'd have to do a pat down. Who's deciding? Is it a male or a female? I'm an X.
Yeah.
Well,
Gender X.
I pick one.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, especially with hormones, that type of thing, it's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of basic, especially when I didn't even think of the hospital.
Right. That element
that's
is
pretty
just.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, many students believe that their license doesn't show how they feel inside. Do you think the state should, try to get in there and say, no, you're not a man, you're not a female, you're.
I don't think the license is supposed to show what you feel inside. I think the license is supposed to be a document providing information for officials and for people that are trying to judge your age or whether you're able to partake in certain activities or not able to partake in certain activities. There's no feelings involved.
But again, if that license leads somebody to be arrested for, violating the law, then how is a cop supposed to respond if there's an X on there and they don't know? Do you know what I mean?
How
If
they're a man or woman.
They're responding to the crime, not to how the person feels inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they have a picture.
It's an interesting topic. I just think that, if you identify as a male or a female, that's what you should go with. It should be an M or an F. Keep it simple. As long as you're going to be putting genders on there.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be biologically, just how you identify.
Exactly. That should solve a lot of issues for anybody who might be, I'm not a man
Like iffy,
anymore.
yeah,
Okay,
in the
then
middle.
put female.
Yeah, where do you incarcerate an X gender? You
Yeah.
put them in jail with males, or do you put them in
Yeah,
jail with females?
exactly.
You know?
And when you bring them
More
to jail,
complex.
there's usually a matron there if it's a female,
Right.
and it brings them to a different cell block than the guys, even at your local jails. So they're treated differently, So you'd have to know one way or another which hallway you're bringing them down.
Right, yeah.
Right, and does that come down to the judge? Like,
Judge.
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah,
it's a dodgy subject.
yeah. I'm sure it's an issue for them.
Michael, any response?
No, I'm good.
We covered it.
right.
So I think we're all in
I said
agreement
what I
on that.
said.
pretty
Agreement.
much.
Issue 3. All right, so the fallout from the Mueller investigation continues. Robert Mueller releasing a letter stating that Attorney General Barr's summary failed to capture the findings of the investigation. Barr releases a heavily redacted report, and Democrats issuing subpoenas and the Trump administration directing those being subpoenaed to ignore them and not testify. Should Congress drop it and move on or pursue their investigation? What impact does this have on the 2020 presidential race? Cindy.
I think it's done. I think it's, stick a fork in it, it's done. They've done this investigation for 2 years, and Mueller did not press any charges. So if there was anything there, I'm sure at this point there would have been charges coming forward. So the fact that it was, they cleaned up, the Russians that were involved in some shady things. They picked up quite a few people in the Trump administration for other things other than relating to this administration, and they've cleaned it up. They turned over the report, no charges to be filed. There was no Russian collusion, which is what's stated in there. So that's what the whole purpose of this investigation was the Trump administration colluding with Russia to affect the election, and they weren't. It's done. I think it's time to move on.
Good news, Derek. They cleaned it all up. There's not going to be any Russians bothering any of us in 2020. You're not going to hear a peep
We don't
out
know
of
that the Russians are, but Trump is not
I'm
involved in
relieved.
it.
Yeah.
No, it's not done at all. As you saw yesterday, there was a giant crack in the case when the Honorable Amy Berman Jackson, I could be getting her name a little bit wrong, but she was the judge overseeing Manafort's case and parts of Cohen's case. And she yesterday in Roger Stone's case got a request or put in a request to see the full Mueller report. If she sees something in there, which obviously there's something being hidden. We had 12.5% of that report being redacted, and we were offered another 6% only to certain members of the Congress oversight. So there's still 6.5% of that 484-page report that's being hidden. Very, very
And you don't think the
deep
grand
in
jury,
the administration.
grand jury testimony?
I think that that's absolutely relevant, and I think that should be observed, and that's what Amy Berman Jackson's going to decide when she looks at this. If she sees something, she can release that information. Not to mention Robert Mueller can release that himself. In 2 weeks, he's going to be a private citizen. Is he going to testify? If he testifies and it's contrary to what Barr has put out there, is it all of a sudden stick a fork in it, or is it
Well, no,
is
I
it rare?
agree if something else comes out of it, but there's members of Congress that have already seen the full unredacted report.
There aren't.
I believe there's
There aren't.
about 4 of them.
Nobody
that
in
have already
Congress
seen it.
has seen the full unredacted report.
Yeah, the grand jury stuff has been hidden.
Everything is buried.
But
so
that's the law. You know, that's the thing about
was it the law when Ken Starr was doing the report? Because he gave 18 boxes right down, brought it directly to Congress in a truck and
Right.
delivered it to them, all of it.
Yeah, and then they changed the law after Ken Starr
Yeah,
because
they
it
did
was
after
it was
the-
such a
Because you're giving up witnesses
Yeah.
that have agreed to testify, to do private interviews and whatever. So
Okay.
they're protecting the witnesses.
I'm fully on board with Congress doing whatever they want to do. You know,
Right.
let them do it. I think that from what we've all seen, there is no collusion. You know, our president's not a spy, thankfully. The obstruction stuff is just, it kind of feels like shooting at the wind a little bit.
But-
You know, was he obstructing? What is he obstructing?
Right. If there's
crime
no
that he-
collusion, why obstruct?
Right. Exactly.
So why is he obstructing?
he wasn't. That he
There's
was not
10,
charged with obstruction.
10 documented cases in which he, and it wasn't Mueller's job to charge him. It was Mueller's job to bring
is
the
it?
information to Congress and let Congress decide.
You're an attorney, Michael.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Last I checked.
does an investigator bring evidence to a prosecutor and recommend if charges should be brought or not?
And the FBI can arrest anybody they want.
I believe the special counsel, okay, he purposely put himself in a role where he was not going to make recommendations. He was going to present the evidence, and then Congress decides whether or not to bring charges. So I don't know if I agree with it in terms of the recommendation.
Jeez, it's
I
too
agree with the
bad Clooney didn't do
presentation
that.
part. Okay, so the issue, I mean, getting back to the actual question, the way it's written, okay, should Congress drop it? All right, I think really what you're going to see is, from a political standpoint, so if I'm advising the Democratic Party politically, I mean, what you're going to see is this. You're going to see what you should see is the senior members of Congress not actively pursuing this. You're going to see pit bulls in there. You're going to see, maybe lower level members of the House of Representatives trying to make a name for themselves, okay? You're going to see people on the attack, okay? And then you're going to see what you may see if the case is made. All right, if the case is made and things continue to sort of evolve the way Derek was speaking of, then you're going to see the senior members of Congress reluctantly pursue these charges.
So I ask, if Don McGahn, right, testified for 25 hours in front of Robert Mueller, and the president obviously waived executive privilege for him, why is he raising executive privilege now when Don McGahn wants to go to speak to Congress?
Right.
Why? There's no reason. If Robert Mueller fully exonerated the president, Why isn't the president literally dragging Robert Mueller into Congress to speak to that matter?
You know, what's funny about those on the right, or those who, you know, might, support Trump or might support this administration, or Republicans or support the Republicans, is that, look, you know, the primary, you could say that I'm naive or whatever, but I'll go to my grave saying that the primary fault of the Clintons, okay, the gold standard in people being investigated.
Correct,
okay?
yes.
The problem with the Clintons is they acted guilty even on issues where they were innocent. Okay, they were they would obstruct for the sake of obstructing. Okay, and I will go to my grave believing that in terms of a lot of the things that they were accused of, they did not do in terms of this Clinton body count and all this other garbage that you hear out there. But the Achilles heel of Bill and Hillary Clinton is they would indeed obstruct or take moves to obstruct just for the sake of obstructing.
Well, is that not what Trump's doing?
And that's exactly what Trump is doing. Right. So again, are we being hypocritical where the Republicans and those supporters of Trump are saying, well, you know, he's obstructing, what is there to obstruct? But, well, you know what? This is what you tormented the Clintons on, and this is what, you know, Bill Clinton had no legal need to lie about oral sex, but he did. And as a result, he was impeached, okay?
Correct.
Is this guy going to meet the same fate?
Well,
oh, no.
We have to look. The other day, Senate Republicans subpoenaed Donald Trump Jr. So even they're getting on board with this notion that there's a lot of sketchy stuff in here that we need to address. And if we're going to still see subpoenas, we can't say this thing is cooked. This thing's not cooked. It's still got a lot of working parts. There is a whole case in New York State against Paul Manafort. There's a whole case locked and loaded against Donald Trump in New York State. All these things that Michael Cohen was convicted of during campaign for campaign finance violations, Donald Trump is also legally tied to those things. And there is a case being built in the Southern District of New York that is ready to go. If he loses in 2020, he goes right to that court. That's why he cannot lose in 2020.
But the whole purpose of this investigation and the reason that they even got the warrants to do this investigation was the Russia collusion.
And funny that there's no actual foreign investigation involved in the 484 pages. It's really weird.
No, I was just going to say, Cindy, the purpose of Whitewater was to investigate a real estate deal, and now we're talking about oral sex. So,
These things go places.
Go ahead.
I was going to tie. I think the real reason for the special investigation was to impeach Donald Trump. I think that's been the House's vision from the beginning, is to get Donald Trump impeached. When the Mueller report came out and it didn't really show much impeachable offenses, that's what they've kind of been jumping on, is that's what Mueller left them with, is these 10 examples of possible obstruction, which like half of them are tweets. It's public stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like he was in a back room doing anything shady. You read the report.
Or destroying evidence after being subpoenaed for it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the examples, it follows the same routine. Donald Trump would ask somebody to do something. Why don't we fire Mueller? McGahn says, I can't do that. It's against the law. And Trump says, okay.
These people are the ones that saved him.
Right, they're doing their job.
Like Lewandowski, who was, as far as Donald Trump thought, he was going to deliver a message to Jeff Sessions. He skipped town because he said, I'm not going to do this.
Right.
So when you have a president that is so askew and he's demanding people to do things that are clearly against the law, they say it's against the law, he says do it anyway, and they don't do it, that's not the president acting in our best interest. That's the president saying, do this regardless of the public's best interest, and people, the adults in the room, saying, I'm not going to do that, or I resign. John McGahn resigned. He left.
We have 30 seconds left, so exit question. 20 candidates and counting so far for the Democratic nomination. Who will be the first one to drop out? Andrew.
First one of the Democrats? Ooh. I'm going to go with Beto. I don't think things went really good for him.
You're wrong.
Yeah, maybe.
Who is Michael Bennett?
There's like 4 or 5 Democrats that I've never heard of. A bunch of those will drop out.
Yeah. John Hickenlooper. I can think of a lot of them.
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren.
You think so?
Yeah, she's at the bottom of the pile. She's going to be too.